Hello, I am Jyotika. In today's class, I will be solving some of the clinical psychology option questions from the specimen paper that has been released for the 2024 syllabus of CIE A-level psychology. This question is this video is specifically made for Cambridge students. I will try to cover all the options which are there, but I cannot cover even one entire option in one video. So few of the questions I will be doing today. Before I begin with any of the questions, just some practical advice I would like to give is one, make sure your exam writing skills are good. Just memorizing notes of the internet or referring to the textbook and just by hearting all the content is not going to help you in any way, because they're not going to ask you to just speak out all the content that you know in the exam. Unless you know how to answer the questions, you're not going to score. So exam skills are more important than having just some memorized understanding of the content. So one, focus on your exam skills. Two, stop referring to past papers and outdated textbooks if you really want to score in this exam. I don't know why. I think because the schools are giving wrong instructions. That's what I have come to know from my students. Other cases like home learners and all, I don't know why they are making this mistake of referring to an outdated textbook which does not have many of the topics which are there in the new syllabus. So if you're now going to do around 30 to 50% of the topics just because you're referring to a dated textbook, how you're going to score in the paper is something I really don't understand. And as far as referring to past papers is concerned from an outdated syllabus, how that will help you to answer AO2 type of questions which are being given a lot of weightage this year, I don't know. How it will help you to answer 6 markers. They used to come as 8 markers before. Of course, if they've reduced it to 6 markers, there is some change in the way you have to answer the question. So how you're going to address that, I don't know. When it comes to the 10 markers, earlier it was more about explaining the topic with the help of the issues and debates. This time there is very strong emphasis on giving strengths and weaknesses from the issues and debates along with the explanation. So how you're going to answer by memorizing old mark schemes, if that is your strategy, I really don't know. So don't engage in wrong habits when the board is instructing you otherwise. They have put all the guidelines, they have put up the new syllabus copy, they have put up the specimen papers. There is absolutely no reason for you to follow something that is against the advice, that is to follow the old syllabus. So stop engaging on those habits, is going to prove to be costly to you only. No one else has anything to lose in that. So giving you that advice from my side, let us begin with this option, clinical psychology. What I'll do is I'll explain to you how you have to think about an answer, then I'll give you a format for writing the answer, and then we'll actually write the answer also as a specimen or a model answer. Okay, so I'm reading out the first scenario. This is a typical AO2 assessment objective to application based question. James has a mood disorder and has started to receive rational emotive behavior therapy. Now, in some students' mind, as soon as they read this sentence, it translates to I have to just describe whatever I have learned about REBT. So whatever I have memorized, now I just have to write it for 4 marks. If that was the case, they would have asked you a straightforward question, describe rational emotive behavior therapy, and they would have given it 4 marks. There was no need for them to give such a big scenario here if you did not have to apply your knowledge to it. So firstly, don't think in that direction. I'm reading further. At the first session, James tells the therapist that he has been having problems at work. He feels he has nothing to contribute in his team. He also thinks that his manager does not like him, and this is causing him distress. Explain how REBT can help James with his distress. You have to bring to mind what you have learned about REBT. The key in what I have said is you have to bring to mind. You don't have to write down whatever you have learned in REBT. So first in your mind, remember what you've learned in REBT. You have learned the A, B, C, D model. You can extend it to B, C, D, E also. In my opinion, A, B, C, D is all you need to know from REBT at your level. A is the activating event, B is the belief, C consequence, and D is disputation. How you know you have to reach till D, because some of you all might have just learned till ABC, is because they want you to say how REBT can help James with his distress. They don't want you to explain his scenario through the REBT model. So they don't want a theoretical answer. They want how a solution will be reached or how treatment will be done for his problem. So ABC just gives you the theory of why someone is having a problem. D tells you how that problem can be resolved through disputing. So actually your major focus has to be on D for this answer. You need not write anything of the descriptive of REBT in this answer. You directly have to start addressing James' scenario. That is how all AO2 answers are written. All scenario situation based answers are written. Firstly, you have to start off by saying what will happen in the therapy. Think of this as a step-by-step procedure that you are giving of what James will do in the therapy. Anytime in the paper, before you write anything, you should have an outline in your mind. So the first thing is James is going to meet the therapist. Because it is REBT, he will present his irrational beliefs to the therapist. Present in the sense, of course, the therapist will probe him into giving his irrational beliefs. I'll phrase it properly when I'm writing the answer. Right now I'm just giving you the line of thinking. So first, James' irrational beliefs will be placed in front of the therapist. After that, those will be challenged by the therapist. Challenged in the sense that they will be disputed for the therapist. Now again, when it comes to these application type of questions, we shouldn't keep the answers abstract. We should make them concrete. We should use wording from the question and answer the questions. So, what do I mean by irrational beliefs will be challenged? What is an example of what irrational belief James is having in this scenario? So, let us read the scenario again and see what are these beliefs that are possibly there. We just have to give examples. We don't have to be perfect, and there is no fixed answer. We just have to be able to present something to illustrate our point. James believes that he has nothing to contribute to his team. Perhaps this is an irrational belief. He has a lot to contribute to his team because, after all, he is working in that team. But maybe because of his fear, maybe because of this distress which he is facing since a long time, he is not able to contribute anything to his team. That would be a more rational belief. Another belief James is having is that the manager does not like him. So wherever we see James is feeling something, he's thinking something, all that gives indication of possible irrational beliefs. So manager does not like him. That could be irrational. Perhaps the manager does like him. Maybe he does not agree with some of the work that James is doing, but not liking him. What is the evidence for that? So any one of these we can take and present as an example. Right now I'll take the first one. He has nothing to contribute to his team. So we can illustrate our previous point by saying, for example, James' irrational belief might be that he has nothing to contribute, whereas he does have something to contribute in reality. It could be his fear or hesitation that is preventing him from contributing. If he tries harder, he will be able to contribute. So this is now what the therapist has to make him realize. He has to get James from the irrational to the rational thought. So the therapist can dispute this irrational thought. How? By suggesting a more rational thought. And then James will have to practice this more rational thought, and that is how he will be helped from his distress. This is how we have to explain this answer. Totally based on James' scenario and nothing to do with only the theory of REBT. Okay, as I said, we will also write a sample answer. So now I'm writing that so that you can see even more clearly how you should be answering this type of a question. Rest assured that this question will not come in the paper. They can ask you an REBT scenario based question, But this exact same James scenario will not come in the paper. The history of CIE is that they do not repeat questions, especially when it comes to these scenario based questions. They are not going to repeat the exact wording anytime. Make sure you know how to answer these questions. If you are resorting to memorizing past paper answers and all, and you're going to rote learn and write the answers, it's going to prove to be very ineffective. It might work out in some subjects in which memorization is all you need to do, although I doubt there must be any such subject, but students do tell me. In psychology, I can tell you because I know about psychology, that strategy does not work out. So stop trying to memorize answers. If you feel you can memorize the specimen mark scheme and get very good marks in the paper, that is not going to work out. You have to know how to answer the questions. I am repeating this because students have a lot of wrong notions because of which they score poorly in the paper. This is, I'm saying something from my years of experience in teaching students from this board. Okay, so how we can present the answer is with the help of the therapist. James will be able to identify his irrational thoughts. Some students will write irrational beliefs are identified in REBT. That is not wrong, but why are you not referring to the scenario? Why are you not talking about James when they have asked you about James? Have they asked you generally what is REBT? Answer the question as it is asked. Next, we can write, then the therapist will dispute these beliefs and help James formulate more realistic beliefs that he can practice to reduce his distress. For example, one irrational belief of James might be, I have nothing to contribute to my team. The therapist could dispute this by asking him how he made it to his team without having anything to contribute. Then he can suggest a more rational thought to James, such as, I have a lot to contribute to my team, but I hesitate in making a contribution. This will help James feel less distressed and to work upon how to overcome his hesitation. As I said earlier, this is a sample answer. There are many ways of answering the same question. Your language can be different, your examples can be different. The essence has to be same, and the essence is that you are giving most focus on disputing. That is the key thing in this answer, because it is about helping James. It is not about explaining his scenario through the ABC model. So you need to focus on the D part. You need to be specific to James and explain relevantly with his scenario using wording from his scenario. If that is what you are doing, you will score, even if your answer is different from this one. Okay, and this is something that is applicable to most questions, particularly to these AO2 type of questions. I'm coming to the next question. Outline what is meant by the nature versus nurture debate. This is a very general question. They haven't asked us to answer this with reference to any particular theory or study. So generally what is meant by nature versus nurture is something we need to explain. It's for 2 marks. So it should be obvious that 1 mark is for explaining what is nature and the other mark is for explaining what is nurture. We need not even include examples. If it was say for 4 marks, we would have to include 1 example of each side. The mistake students make in these type of answers is they are not clear. Nature, they'll say, means genes. Nature versus nurture debate, the nature side is not saying genes. What do you mean by nature is genes? Nature side is giving the explanation of a behavior as being caused by genes. Be very clear in what you intend to say. Don't memorize one word and give one word answers and make it appear like it's a one sentence answer just by saying nature is this. So nature is genes, nurture is environment. They're asking you what is the implication of nature and nurture in the debate. They don't want to know your one word answers. Okay, so how we can answer this is 2A. The nature side of the debate attributes behavior to inherited characteristics like genes. The nurture side of the debate attributes behavior to learning from the environment. Okay, if there's an A part, there's got to be a B part. So don't forget about it. Students just skip over. Okay, 2B is explain one weakness of explanations for impulse control disorders from nature side of the debate. As I mentioned earlier, these are the type of questions coming up from this year. So you have to know strengths and weaknesses of issues and debates very well. Impulse control disorders, we have seen various explanations. First, when we read such a question, we have to think which is that explanation which was supporting the nature side. That explanation was the dopamine explanation, dopamine deficiency, suggesting that there is some problem in the genes that are producing dopamine, and therefore a lack of dopamine is created in the brain of individuals, which makes them seek out impulsive activities. So first, let's just mentally make sure we know what is the nature explanation of impulse disorders. It's the dopamine deficiency hypothesis. Now, what is a problem with, or what is a weakness of taking this side of the debate? When it comes to taking the nature side of the debate in general, regardless of which theory or study it is, the problem is one, it ignores the nurture side. So it tends to be reductionist. The same behaviors can be explained in terms of nurture also. So that becomes a problem, that we are not looking at a complete explanation. Another problem that arises is that it is very deterministic to say something is because of nature. It can result in hopelessness because we are talking about disorders. So if we say something is genetic, it can discourage people from seeking treatment because they feel that they cannot exercise their free will and overcome the impulsive condition because it's being caused by genes which are beyond their control. Right now, I would go for reductionism as the weakness, and I would suggest that nurture can also explain impulse control disorders. Again, as in every question, the problem that students create here when they write their answers is they are generic. In every answer in the paper, they are generic. That is, when you are generic in answering every question you're going to treat in the same way, regardless of some scenario is given, some evaluation is asked, you're going to lose 50% of the marks in your paper. In psychology, they don't want you to memorize and write facts. So when you're saying something is reductionist, it should support nurture. It seems as if you have just memorized the answer and one answer you have for any type of question which comes of this nature. How does your critical thinking get represented in this? So you have to say, you have to point out, you have to give a specific example again from what you've learned today, but you have to show your critical thinking and show that you know what could be the nurture explanation for impulse control disorders. So it's important to complete the point and suggest that a nurture explanation, for example, Miller's feeling state explanation, can also either add to the nature explanation or by itself be a better explanation of impulse control issues, at least for some people. So that is not to be ignored. That is how you have to explain the point. Explain, not just state. Just keep that in mind. Look at the command terms and practice to answer as per the command terms. Okay, so again, putting a sample answer for this one. The nature explanation of impulse control disorders that attributes these disorders to dopamine deficiency is reductionist. These disorders can also be understood with nurture explanations. For example, Miller's feeling state explanation suggests that memories formed from the experience of engaging in impulsive behaviors can be triggered in situations resembling those memories, prompting the individual To act impulsively. Again, your answer does not have to be exactly like this one. But what is important is clearly naming the weakness to begin with. Many students don't directly point out, okay, this is reductionist. They'll keep on beating around the bush until the end it's not clear which weakness they've pointed out. So always make your first statement about directly addressing the question. Say what the weakness is that they've asked for. And then what is important is a specific explanation. Specific, not generalized. Explanation, not a simple statement. Oh, it is deterministic, it should have supported free will. Oh, it is nature, it should have supported nurture. No. Explanation, elaboration. I have elaborated with Miller's feeling state theory. You could elaborate with a different theory or with the help of a different point. Okay, let's come to the next question. Asha is a student at school who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Explain how two characteristics of this disorder might affect Asha at school. Layouts are very simple for every answer. Name, elaborate. Name, elaborate. So you just do it twice because they've asked you for two characteristics. So name the characteristic, link it to Asha's scenario. So elaborate with reference to a scenario. Again, they've given a scenario, you have to refer to it. No point of giving general answers. Again, name a point, elaborate. So name another characteristic, say how it affects Asha. Okay, so one characteristic of bipolar disorder, characteristic feature or symptom which comes to my mind is reckless behavior. Impulsive behavior is one of the symptoms. Now, since Asha is in school, she's a student at school, that is what they've told us. If she acts recklessly or impulsively, she might end up disrupting classes, such as by speaking out of turn or by doing some behavior that is distracting for the teacher, and then she will be in trouble at school. So, in my mind, I would make firstly the point and the example clear before I write it. So, my one point is about recklessness. Another characteristic that I feel I can explain is that in between there are episodes of depression. So, depression is also one of the symptoms, low mood specifically, when it comes to bipolar disorder. So, I feel that would demotivate Asha since she's a student. She needs to be motivated enough to attend classes or to do her classwork or homework. I feel that will get in the way of help letting her do her work. Okay, so that is how I'm going to explain. In some scenarios, you will notice, like the James scenario, a lot of detail is given. In some, you would notice, like Asha's scenario, there's just one or two words which is helping us write the answer. So that's good. The less the number of suggestions from their side, the more we can creatively add something to the examples. Either case, we should know how to answer whether the scenario is more detailed or less detailed. So all this practice will help us to do that. Okay, let us write the answer for 3. 3A. Again, don't beat around the bush, be very clear and organized in your answer. One characteristic of bipolar disorder is reckless or impulsive behavior. I can, to make it more specific, say that during manic episodes, but I don't want to introduce unnecessary terminology. As far as terminology is concerned, it's important. So, using the words reckless or impulsive by itself is terminology. We should not give general answers. Like someone would say, Asha would misbehave, Asha would act careless. That is not the terminology you're learning from the textbook. So, use correct psychological terms while answering, but again, don't introduce too many terms which will not be able to explain. So they're just distracting. Like given it's just a 4 marks answer, one characteristic is just for 2 marks. Don't introduce too many terms also. Be balanced. So reckless or impulsive behavior, this can cause Asha to disrupt her class For example, by speaking out of turn, and she would be reported for indiscipline. Another characteristic is experiencing low mood, this can cause Asha to feel a lack of the energy required to attend school and to complete her classwork and homework. As I have mentioned, I will try to do all the options in different videos, but I want you to know that you have to do only the two options which you have selected for the exam. Just recently I came across a student who was not aware of this. So she thought she would have to answer all the four options. So some things that I speak might seem very obvious to you, but just know that every school is not guiding students well, and every student is not learning properly, not going through the syllabus properly. So that's why I mentioned some things in between. Okay, next they've asked us explain one strength of the diagnostic guidelines of mood disorders. Diagnostic guidelines, always the immediate strength that comes to mind. In fact, immediate strengths that come to mind are one, reliability, the other, generalizability, nomothetic approach. Of course, there are many others. There's validity, that is relevant, and objectivity, things like that. Objectivity, validity, I know is almost the same. But generally, reliability comes to mind because consistently we are using the same diagnostic criteria to diagnose each and every case. So it's very standardized. That is one thing. So definitely we have to, name the strength and then just elaborate again. Giving an example is always the best way of elaborating. So in the DSM or ICD, whichever we are learning, we see that, okay, this time I think ICD is only there. So in the ICD, we see that uh, for bipolar and depression, certain symptoms are listed. So we can give some of those symptoms as an example. It's just that make sure the example you're giving in such a way that it illustrates your point. It should not seem separated from what you're trying to state. Same way for generalizability, you can suggest that it is used all across the world. So it is like one fixed approach that can be used everywhere. So you need not take an idiographic approach. It becomes simpler for diagnosticians to figure out which disorder somebody is having. So those type of things we can write here. Also, of course, it is objective. There is a very fixed duration of how long the symptoms should be visible and how many symptoms are required for diagnosis. So such things makes the diagnosis very unbiased. So number of points come to mind. Right now I'm just taking reliability, and following that same format which I always take, I'm answering this question. Okay, as things keep coming to my mind from what I've been doing in my classes, I keep on mentioning. So one more thing that comes to my mind is this year, because unlike AS, you don't have space to answer in the paper itself. Students don't number the questions correctly. They've lost the habit of numbering the answers. So just make sure you're very clear with which question you're answering. Don't just write the answer without the number. Okay. So I would suggest one strength is that the diagnostic guideline of mood disorders are very reliable because they are standardized. students miss either point. Either they won't say it's standardized, they'll just say it's reliable, or they will say it is standardized, but they won't say that that increases reliability. So leaving things incomplete just leads to confusion. So make a complete point and then elaborate. So I would say, for example, for unipolar depression, the criteria presented are low mood, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of guilt, etc. And these same guidelines are used to diagnose any potential patient. Okay, one last discussion for today is, some students would ask, how many words do we have to answer in how many sentences, how many points? In the mark scheme, it always appears like 2 sentences for 2 marks. They are just guidelines. Mark schemes are guidelines. They are not to be taken as sample answers to be learned to the T or something. They're just showing you how the marking is done. So there is no hard and fast rule of how many sentences, points, words you have to cover. Keep your focus on the organization or the format of the answer. Keep your focus on the content that you need to cover. Don't bother about sentences and points. It's all simply a distraction. If you know the format of answering, so you know it's about naming the point and elaborating, you can't go wrong with it. If you don't know that is how to answer, then you end up writing everything, unnecessary sentences, and still your point is not clear. Clarity will automatically bring you to the right number of sentences or points. Lack of clarity, not knowing how to answer the exam questions, will take you away from being able to give the correct number of points. It is as simple as that. Today I'm ending the class here. I will try to come back soon and complete the 6 and 10 marker, only I can't say when. If you have any questions related to this video, you must comment in the box below. If you are going to personally message me or call me to ask questions about this video, you're not going to receive a response from my side. You have to ask your questions through the correct channel. My contact is not being made available to you to comment about this video. So if you approach me through the right channel, you will get your answers. If you approach me through the wrong channel, I will not be answering your questions. Thank you for watching this video. I'll try to return soon.